Okay, so what is a healthy body weight for you? What your healthy body weight is may differ from those charts that the doctors use, the BMI charts and all of those things. You need to do a personal assessment on what's healthy for you. I have a picture here of Eleanor Roosevelt. The reason is because there's a story of Eleanor Roosevelt that really summarizes this nicely. I first learned this story when I was an undergraduate student in Nutrition 100. So Eleanor Roosevelt was a tall woman. She was about 5'10", 5'11", I think. And she was also not a delicate woman. She had some meat on her bones. And she's quoted as saying, you know, my doctors really want me to be a certain weight. They want me to be about 150 pounds. And I can get to that number that the doctors want me to be at, but it takes a tremendous amount of my time and energy to get there and to stay there. But what I found is that when I'm living my life and just trying to be as healthy as I can be, my weight tends to gravitate about 10 to 15 pounds higher than that number the doctors want me to be at. And so I've decided that my body is smarter than the doctors, and I'm going to let my body live where it wants to live when I'm trying to just be as healthy as I can be. And this allows me to actually live a fuller life. I love this because it really demonstrates that our set point for our healthy weight may be a little bit different than what population studies show, and that's okay. So you are at a healthy weight if you can maintain it without constant dieting, but also your weight needs to be appropriate for your age and your physical development. So when we are growing, when we're teenagers, and even going into our 20s, your body weight may fluctuate. So a lot of kids, as they're growing and teenagers, might be alarmingly thin, but it turns out that it's just fine for their particular genetic makeup. And then a lot of kids, actually, when they're about to go through a growth spurt, they grow out before they grow up. So a lot of kids start to look what we think of as chubby. They might get some love handles, their cheeks sort of start getting chubby, when in fact what's happening is they're about to have a growth spurt and their body is preparing for that. And so we need to not freak out. Also, as you are older, in your 70s, 80s, 90s, the research shows that it's probably healthier for you to have just a little bit more weight on your body, to be almost in that overweight category, because people tend to do better if they encounter an illness late in their life when they've got a little more meat on their bones. Your body weight is based on your family history of body shape and body weight. This is very tricky though, because you do inherit the genes of your biological family, but you also inherit their habits. And so the habits may not be serving you well. If you've inherited the habits of a family that likes to eat a lot in front of the TV, munch mindlessly in the car, things like that. That's a habit, not a gene. And so this part can be tricky. But if you look around at your family, you might notice, for example, that maybe the women in your family all have hips and butts that are a little bit more ample. And this is probably genetic, not necessarily habits. And then your body weight should allow you to have good eating habits and regular physical activity. I want you to think about this. Every single person in the world, regardless of their body weight, whether they're underweight, overweight, normal weight, they all need good nutrition and they all need good physical activity. And so if you are getting good nutrition and getting adequate physical activity, your body weight probably will end up pretty much where it needs to be genetically. Our body weight, what we really need to reflect on is, are we really looking at the number on the scale, or should we be looking at health? And my answer to that is you should be looking at health, not weight. Our definition of weight, of a healthy weight, comes from population studies on a number of different people, but it's not it doesn't take into account how healthy a person is. And in fact, a lot of people fit into that healthy weight category, but they may not be very healthy. They may be sedentary. They may be eating fast food all day, but their body weight isn't reflecting it. And so what we really want to focus on is health. So we measure health by things like your blood pressure, your blood sugars, your cholesterol, absence of disease, and your ability to live a full life. So all of these things are measurements of health, and that's what we really are focusing on. This leads then to a philosophy that a lot of health professionals have adopted, and it's called health at every size. So the research does show that it is possible for people to be overweight and yet healthy. Sometimes they call it fat and fit. So this health at every size movement basically says that looking at the number on the scale is not meaningful, because what we're really wanting to look at is how healthy a person is. And so you need healthy food. How well are you eating? You need movement. How well are you moving? And don't forget that you need different types of movement. So you need to build your muscles, you need to strengthen your bones, you need endurance activities for your heart and your lungs, and you need balance activities and mobility activities. It doesn't matter what weight you are at, you still need these things. And then everybody needs adequate sleep, and everybody needs good mental health. So you can look at this woman here and you might say, well, she's overweight, she needs to lose weight. But someone from the health at every size area looks at her and says, well, we have no idea if she's healthy. We need to measure things like blood pressure. We need to assess if she's getting what she needs as far as health. And if she is, then she's healthy. We don't have to make her go on a diet to lose weight if she's doing the things that are leading to health. So let's talk about losing weight. The first knee-jerk reaction that most people do when they want to lose weight is they say, well, we need to go on a diet. The tricky part is that our approach to dieting, which is food restriction, it tends to backfire, and in a big way. So dieting, there's a whole body of research that demonstrates that the food restriction and the dieting mentality that we tend to use is actually a really bad tool for long-term weight loss. People who do dieting behavior tend to gain more weight in the long term. It also tends to be linked to disordered eating and a poor body image. And so it actually ends up being kind of this vicious cycle where you go on a strict diet, you maybe lose some weight, but then as soon as your willpower lets out or you go off the diet, you gain that weight back. And you feel horrible about yourself, and you feel horrible about the way you're eating, and you start to get some disordered eating patterns where you feel guilty and shameful for even wanting a chocolate bar, for example, and it's just a very vicious cycle. What I just described has been termed the diet mentality. And so you have probably heard the diet mentality from your friends, relatives, maybe even yourself. You've gone through this. And so it's things like, I'm starting my diet tomorrow, so I'm going to go crazy today. Or, oh, I ate some guacamole, so I better do an extra run to punish myself. It's somebody that uses a list of should eats and shouldn't eats, good food, bad food. Somebody who ends up feeling guilty when they've eaten a so-called forbidden food or overeaten. When we have a lot of eating that's happening not eating despite feeling hungry, or eating when you aren't hungry, sometimes this is a sign that somebody's in the diet mentality. Eating food that you don't like just because it's on the plan, eating food that you don't want to just because it's on the plan. This does tend to backfire because it's not satisfying, and so we'll eat the food. We don't want the food, but we'll eat it. But we're just unsatisfied, and we start to think about the food that we actually really wanted to eat. And then when somebody's in a diet mentality, especially really deep into the diet mentality, it can start to take over their life. They can start to just become obsessed with food. They're constantly thinking about it. They're always talking about calories. They're always talking about what they look like, what the people on Instagram look like, which diet they should do, which diet the Kardashians are doing. And it really just starts to take over too much mental energy. So what do we do? How do we lose weight then? If we don't want to get in the diet mentality, how do we lose weight? Well, there are some sane approaches. I'm going to talk about the health at every size in our Zoom class meeting, but I just want you to consider that what we're really aiming for is health. When we talk about weight loss, what we're really aiming for is we want your blood pressure to be under control. We want you to have good cholesterol and not be at risk for diabetes. And the steps that you would take to do all of those things would be to eat healthy and to exercise. And so that's kind of what Health at Every Size is about. It says, you know, let's just take those steps that aim towards health and let's forget about the scale. So Health at Every Size and the research behind it has shown actually that you don't actually have to be at that weight on the scale that people are telling you or the books are telling you to be. What you really have to do for health is just to focus on those healthy behaviors. And the research has shown that there are people who are quite healthy, even though their weight, the number, is not what we think of as healthy. When you look at things like blood pressure and blood sugars and blood cholesterol and strength and stamina, you can find those things in some people. We'll talk about that in Zoom lecture. There's also something called intuitive eating that I'll go into in lecture. But the goal is to make lifestyle and diet modifications that are sustainable, not too restrictive, but things that are sustainable. And then in addition to that, getting physical activity that's enjoyable so that it's also sustainable. We all need exercise every day. And so you don't want to just do exercise when you're aiming to lose weight. You want to add it in a way that it's always there. So the focus for sustainable healthy weight is on adding healthy food rather than eliminating your favorite foods. Sometimes it helps to keep diet and exercise records to see what you can tweak that'll be kind of painless and effortless, because sometimes things are creeping in, calories are creeping in just because you're just overeating portions or something that you just don't really care that much about. The aim is for slow weight loss or slow weight gain, but also to help with body acceptance and health.